Greetings, Sanbonani, Dumelange, Absheni. Hello out there once again. It's your boy AK back again with another episode of The Real Talk with AK, man. Hey, it's been a minute, yo. It's been a while since I did this alone, cause over the last few episodes that were published, I've been having guests, I've been with my co-host, but since this is the first episode for the year for 2024, I actually decided that I should actually hold like a solo episode, something and just to give you a few updates of what's been happening so far, because we've been working, still on that path of bringing about practical solutions for practical societal issues that exist within our communities. Hey, and even on this episode, we'll actually be talking about a sensitive topic. But before we actually do that, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button down there, and don't also forget to go check out our exclusive community of practical problem solvers on Patreon, a community whereby a community that brings together different members from different paths of life together to come and try to find like practical solutions for the societal issues that exist within our communities. So that's what we're all about, the People's Podcast Network. We've been moving, hosting events, hosting dialogue sessions, and man, it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey. But apart from that, let me just introduce the topic for this episode. So on this episode, we'll be exploring and addressing the effects of systematic racism on black communities in South Africa, as we are here to seek practical solutions for practical societal issues, because I feel like this is a topic that we tend to shy away from, and sometimes we blindly use this race card even in situations that we are not supposed to be using it. But that's something we'll get to during the course of the episode. But apart from that, let's jump right in. So, as part of the introduction, I'll start by actually breaking down the history of this whole concept of systematic racism. So, in order to truly understand the effects of systematic racism, we need to delve deep into its history in South Africa. Because bear in mind, the apartheid era left a lasting impact on our black communities, because it was something that was institutionalized racially, because it institutionalized racial segregation, discrimination and oppression. This systematic mistreatment has had far-reaching consequences that continue to be felt even today. The effects of apartheid, we are still feeling them even now. So right now we are living in times whereby you'll find people whereby they are always talking about apartheid is in the past. Yes, apartheid is something of the past, but that doesn't mean the effects are still not felt even today, because that's trauma. We are still feeling the effects because even the land is not yet with us. So those are some of the things that we'll actually be looking into on this episode here, because apartheid has actually contributed to how things are actually structured right now. For instance, recently there was this scandal that has been exposed for West Bank, whereby blacks have been paying 12% interest rates, and then a white person has been paying 8% interest rates for their installments. So those kind of things. So right now it's systematic. It's no longer about you are black, you're not supposed to enter this building. Racism has been weaponized and it's been systematic in terms of how they go about it, because as a black person it's hard for you to walk inside a bank and get a loan. But for someone who's white, it's actually simple. They can go in and just get a loan, just like that book. But for you as a black person, they'll tell you that you don't qualify and so forth, and if you do qualify, you end up paying these huge installment rates. So I want us to take a look at the impacts and effects that systematic racism has had on us as a race. So systematic racism has had like a profound impact on the lives of black individuals and communities in South Africa. It has limited access to quality education, healthcare, employment opportunity and housing. It has perpetuated racial stereotypes and stigmatizations. These effects have created a cycle of disadvantage that is difficult to break. You feel me? Like, these things, they have created a disadvantage for the black community. For instance, let's look at like the access we have to the healthcare. It's poor. Our public hospitals are deteriorating. Corruption is at the center of our public hospitals. It's hard for people to get beds in hospitals. You find people sleeping on the floor. So like, those are some of the effects, because post-apartheid, we were never given the information or research in terms of how to maintain these things. They were just handed over to us, but we were never trained in terms of how to do this. That's why you see, like, hence most of our buildings are deteriorating. Actually, for example, I'm Jerry Numara, I'm going extra.
Mijabe?
Kasi show.
Oh, so.
So, like, as I was saying, that it has affected even employment opportunities, you know. There's something like a BEE or triple BEE. That thing is also another factor, that the unemployment rate is at such a high time rate at the moment, you know. Like, systematic racism has had a deep and lasting impact on the lives of black individuals and communities in South Africa. The consequences are wide-ranging, affecting various aspects such as quality education, like I said, healthcare and employment opportunities. By limiting access to quality education, systematic racism has perpetuated disparities in knowledge and skills development. You know, black people skills saleka wantalwane skills yaleke makazana, whereby even the kind of education we received was scared. You can't apply it in real life right now, you know. At the moment you have countries such as Japan, whereby kids are being taught to build cars at an early young age. What's hard for us, what's hard for our education system to actually do that? They said we should go to varsity. We went to varsity, we were taught things. Those things, when you get in the workplace, you get that 80% of them you're not even using them. And that time you're spending like 4 years in varsity, not even counting the high school years and primary. You are being taught about locals, while other countries, they are actually equipping their upcoming generation with the necessary skills. Kids in other countries know programming from the age of 6. But us, because of those effects, because of limited access to quality education, because you find that in public schools, like, as I was saying, that, you know, you find in public schools whereby you have that situation, kids have fewer textbooks, you find more than 60 kids in one classroom, you know, those kind of vibes. And whereby when you go into these private schools, kids are going to school proper. I mean, like, even their results are published the day before ours. So that should actually tell you something, that in terms of equality, that we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. And that's something that actually needs to change, because we can't keep on pushing like this, you know. So, like, you know, this further escalates health disparities within communities, you know. Systematic racism also plays a significant role in limiting employment opportunities for black individuals, like I was saying. Discrimination during hiring processes or lack of diversity initiatives can prevent qualified candidates from accessing equal job prospects, whereby you'll find that when we have used job hunting on this platform, you'll find such things whereby they say that you should actually talk Afrikaans, You know, why are we still using those things as a form of hiring someone, measuring someone's skill of doing the job? Because when it comes to doing the job, it's not about language. It's not about language. Let's be realistic. It's about getting the job done. So these kind of things are actually preventing us from moving forward, you know. And it's something that we should actually dive deep and look for solutions within. But that's something we'll get into at the end of our episode, you know. But for now, we keep on moving, you know. We're still breaking it down, you know. So like, how can we, breaking this cycle of disadvantages is indeed difficult but not impossible. It requires acknowledging the existence of systematic racism. So in order for us to break this cycle, we first need to acknowledge that systematic racism is something that's real. It exists. That's why you find banks overcharging blacks on interest rates compared to white people, whereby you'll find that a black person on mortgage is paying 3 times more compared to a white person. But it also begs to wonder, even for us as a race, that it leads me to ask this question: what are we doing? Because it seems like such things we are not even paying attention. For instance, the West Bank scandal. Everyone is so quiet about this. Busy about Big Brother. That's one of the reasons, you know. That's one of the reasons we are not actually moving, and there's institutions will continue taking advantage of us, you know. That's something we need to acknowledge first, you know. So as we continue talking about how we can break like the cycle, we need to continue raising awareness about the effects of systematic racism on marginalized communities like South Africa's black population. As I was saying just now, that we actually need to start talking about these things, you know, pointing them out that these things are there, asking why is it still like this? We are talking about democracy, but is it really democracy? Are we really in power? Because like we are entertaining things that can't even contribute to like bettering our lives as a race, you know. That's something that needs to change. You know, our priorities are not aligned. Before we actually start pointing or playing this race card, you know, we also need to look at ourselves in terms of what are we doing. For instance, if we continue the way we are doing, you know, even our upcoming generation, they're still going to face the very same issues because we fail to do something about these things. Black person, it's time to wake up. If we have to build our own banks, let it be so. We are capable. Why is it hard for us to do that? Why do we still have to go and beg for like all these higher institutions to actually give us funds, loans, housing loans, car loans, whereby we can actually do these things for ourselves as a race? That's one thing I admire about the Jewish community, you know, because they have this philosophy of saying that if I have 100 rand, it must pass at least on 10 hands of like my fellow brothers before it leaves our community. But that's something as a race we are not doing. And if we continue like this, I'll keep on saying this, we'll forever be like this, you know. We'll forever be like this. It is crucial that our education system provides a comprehensive understanding of the historical context, ongoing effects of systematic racism, as well as highlighting the achievements and struggles of marginalized communities. By doing so, we can foster empathy, tolerance, and respect among future generations, paving the way for a more equitable society. That's the only way to build a future for our kids, the young ones that are still upcoming, you know, like an equal future, a future that has equal opportunities, you know. We first need to acknowledge these things that are there and actually teach them about such things. We don't often talk about these things with our kids, you know. We tend to shy away from addressing these things because we're saying that we're free, right? Nah, we're not. So, another way to combat systematic racism is through economic empowerment. We must work towards creating equal opportunities for black entrepreneurs and professionals, supporting black-owned businesses, advocating for fair employment practices, providing mentorship programs can also help bridge the existing gaps. You know, it goes back to the spirit of Ubuntu, the concept of black tax. You know, that's where we add. Because black tax is all about giving back to where you come from. I'm not talking about the one double story about nah, that's not black tax, you know. That's not black tax. Because, you know, once you reach the top, you need to pull down the ladder for your fellow brothers so that they also get to the top. That's something we are not doing as a race. Instead, we seem to be competing a lot. You know, we are hating on black-owned businesses. You know, it's hard for y'all to support. There's always something negative to say about black businesses. That's one of the reasons you see a huge decline or a low percentage of black-owned businesses, you know, because if we look at the businesses that are actually dominating black-owned, it's mostly clothing brands. What about other industries, such as the motor industry, mining industry? When are we going to take over those industries? Because the only way for us to do that, we need to pull our resources together. We need to start understanding that working together, that's the only way to defeat this sickness, this pandemic, you know. Because right now, for instance, on one of the episodes that we did on season 2, I once spoke about this whereby I was like, we are quick to use this racism card or this race card when whites do a certain thing. You know, for instance, when this AfriForum went and built their university there, I don't know where is it, by Santen, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around those sides. What happened? We cried about race. Why is it only Afrikaans speaking? Question becomes now, what are we doing as a race? What are we actually doing as a race? Because now, you can't always be looking at a race that's actually trying to move forward and be like, no, they are discriminating against us. We can build our own goddamn things, man. Why is it hard for us to do that? Because if we can come together, maybe for like 20 people or 100 people, 100 blacks uniting, contributing, maybe for instance, let's just say 4K per person every month for like 2 years or 3 years. That's something. You know, we can actually build the schools. We can actually do this thing. Problem with us as a race is that we have this sense of entitlement. That's something that's been preventing us to move forward, you know. But the only way for us to actually combat this disease is by working together, you know, promoting each other, you know, advocating for fair practices, co-spanning. You see that your fellow brother is being mistreated at work, but you're just laughing, you're not doing anything about it. Then you say, no, I'm a black person, you are proud to be black. What the fuck? We still have a long way to go, guys. So okay, now let's look at another way of actually promoting, of actually how we can actually break this cycle of systematic racism, you know, in our communities, you know. Like, you know, social integration is also essential in terms of creating a more inclusive community. We need to foster dialogue, understanding, and empathy between different racial and ethnic groups, you know. We need to foster dialogue, understanding, empathy between different racial and ethnic groups. You know, like this thing of saying black or white, race shouldn't be a thing, you know. This thing should not exist. That's the thing, you know. This thing of classifying us, putting us in boxes. When I look at a human being, it's supposed to be a human being, not white or black. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. But that's something we can teach the young ones, because at the end of the day, kids only know love. They don't know hate. We are the ones that actually teach them to hate, you know, by actually separating them from other races, not exposing them to other cultures even. That's something that needs to change, you know. We call this country a rainbow nation for a reason, you know. So if you are excluding your kids from being exposed on other races and cultures, basically when they grow up, as adults, we know that we all hate things we don't understand. That's the reality of things. When you don't understand something, you hate. Instead of what? Looking for the right information and equipping yourself with the right knowledge, like social integration plays a crucial role in building a more inclusive society. By promoting dialogue, understanding, and empathy between different racial and ethnic groups, we can work together towards breaking down barriers and fostering a sense of unity. That's something that I was saying just now. That by actually closing this gap or this bridge that has been created or breaking down this wall that has been built for races, we can achieve a lot of things, we can move forward as a race. We can actually take South Africa from being a developed or still developing country into one of the powerhouses in the world. But because of this separation that you are calling for Cape independence, you want to exclude yourself to that side, who won't achieve anything. That won't solve anything. We need to start ignoring this thing of race, and actually plugging each other with equal opportunities. Yes, it will take time, but if we teach the upcoming generation, it's a good investment, because we know that we will have left them with something that is filled with love, not hate, We're about to take a quick short break right now. Someone is calling me, sorry about that. There's just a phone call here, but I'll respond to it. I'll call them back. By experiencing other cultures firsthand, people can gain a deeper understanding of societal differences and develop empathy towards others. Diversity training is another valuable tool in promoting social integration. Because when you teach people about diversity, what tends to happen is that we stop seeing color, we stop seeing race. It's still saying the same thing, basically, in a way. It's still saying the same thing, basically. Because it helps educate individuals about the importance of inclusivity. It equips them with skills to interact respectfully with people from various backgrounds, Because once you understand someone's culture, where they are from, who they are, why they are the way they are, you'll respect them. Because you understand even some of the challenges that they've been through. So diversity training is also something that we should actually be advocating for, as we move in society, in our communities. Expose yourself to other cultures, like I said, other environments. That's how you grow. That's how you break down this wall that has been created by apartheid, all those things, One tour. Because such trainings also encourage. Again, guys, from our short break, that was a quick one. We stayed on that path of seeking practical solutions for practical societal issues that exist within our communities, and we are still talking about systematic racism in South Africa, in Mzansi. This will always relate to these higher institutions, but I was already breaking down the solutions in terms of how we can address this illness, this sickness that seems to be part of our society, in this people. it's been passed down generation to generation to generation, you know. Yes, it does exist at the end of the day, but we need to face facts that the only reason that it keeps on thriving is because we are failing to unite as a nation.
Yeah, but now go below. What
Says,
does now?
says,
Yeah.
so can nyangwena?
So,
So can.
look, shake engineer, guys.
Kumbe mpala yangu kumbe mangoma bona swin'wana. Now I have to start afresh. And we are back again, guys, from our short break. You know, we are still on that path of seeking practical solutions for practical societal issues that exist within our communities. Before we jump right back in, don't forget to click that subscribe button below down there. Don't also forget to share with your friends and families and let them know that there's a podcast network, you know, that is dedicated its time to like bringing about practical solutions for practical societal issues. As you've seen over the last few years or months, that we've actually been on the ground working hand to hand with communities. We have hosted dialogue sessions such as Machitari Kaufela, whereby it's a platform for men, in fact young men and old men in our society to come together and just close that bridge in terms of conversations, you know, whereby having those conversations you wish maybe your pops you could have had with your pops. So that's why we close that bridge, you know, and we also help each other in terms of empowerment, you know. So the details for our next sessions will be available very soon, but apart from that, on the 24th of February we'll actually be hosting an event called the Love Affair Single and Mingle Sessions. You know, it's our second event. This is the second one. It's an event that takes place annually, you know, so we help people find love too. So like it's about Dr. Love or so we also there, you know, hosting events, trying to revive that entertainment space in the West End, you know. So we're moving, we're growing, you know. And there's been also some dope collaborations because we've also partnered with Visualize Greatness, you know. But apart from that, let's jump right back into our episode as we continue talking about systematic racism, an illness that has been passed down to generation within our race, you know. And if we don't do something about it, it's gonna continue to be so even for the upcoming generation. I'm talking about your kids, your grandkids, because at the end of the day you're gonna get to that point whereby you're a grandparent, you know, whether you like it or not. That's the reality, you know. So like I was talking about diversity training before we went to that short break, you know. So in terms of diversity training, what I was talking about, I was saying that we need to expose ourselves to other cultures, traditions, you know, in order to understand where people come from, who they are, what they do. Because if we don't understand each other, we can't work together. The first step to collaborating, working together, is understanding each other, understanding someone's struggles. You know, because that helps in terms of you understanding how they think, how they behave. So unless if we change that, we're gonna continue doing this, you know, because we need to start working together. That's the reality. We need to start having black-owned businesses, private companies, whereby we have a black-owned company, a fully black-owned company, from shareholders, board of directors, you know, those kind of vibes. Because we are actually capable of building these things, you know, instead of always playing the blame game, pointing the finger, when we see the other race progressing. Because something that surprises me is that we always claim that we are broke as a race, we don't have enough resources. But no, just take a trip to the mall. Just sit down on one of those benches and just observe for like 30 minutes as people are busy doing their groceries. And then come back to me and tell me if those trolleys that you see us busy pushing up and down, that the food that you see in there, is it for that someone who's poor can afford? Because we need to invest in ourselves as a race, You giving back to where you are from, that's not black tax. That's you empowering your fellow brothers and sisters, So, lastly, we must advocate for policy reforms that address systematic racism. This includes working towards equitable legislation, promoting diversity in decision-making positions, and holding institutions accountable for their actions. Our political parties now, our political leaders, it's high time that they sit down and actually focused on coming up with policies that are actually helping alleviate all this pandemic that's there of systematic racism. Like I said, when it talks about holding institutions accountable, it goes back to the statement I made earlier on in terms of us being quiet about what West Bank has been doing to blacks, what FNB has been doing to blacks. And yet we think that we can progress as a race, whereby we are focusing on things that are not contributing to the betterment of our kind, of our race. No, it's high time, we actually started asking these questions, like, why is it like this? Why are you doing this? If they're failing to provide the right answers, we build our own things. But apart from that, this is gonna be a short episode because, as you can see, it's a solo episode. I was just welcoming you to the new year, and letting you know what to expect as we move forward, because this year we're gonna be consistent, because we are trying to match the numbers for Spotify and YouTube. But apart from that, it's been dope, chilling with y'all. I hope you also enjoyed my company. But apart from that, I'm signing out, and don't also forget to go follow us across our social media platforms. It's at the People's Podcast Network on Facebook. It's at the People's Podcast. You can also follow me personally. My Facebook handle is Akay Jr. That's where you can also get some of the updates of the things we do. But in order for you to stay fully updated in terms of what's happening around the podcast network, because we still have new shows that are gonna be coming, new faces joining the network, because we're growing at the end of the day, we're growing, You can just go and subscribe to our newsletter on WordPress. It's at thepeoplespodcast.wordpress.com. That's where you'll get more updates in terms of what's happening, and you can also join our exclusive community for exclusive content, merchandise and so forth on patreon.com/thepeoplespodcastnetwork.com. That's where you can cop yourself merchandise, discounts to our events, invitations to seminars, exclusive one-on-one sessions. So that's the platform if you actually want us to talk one-on-one, engage or meet other practical problem solvers. But apart from that, it's a wrap from our side. Thank you. Like open-mindedness and fosters an environment where everyone feels valued, So apart from that, let's just take a quick short break. We'll be back after this break, but before we actually do that, please don't forget to click our subscribe button down there, and also go check out our blog or newsletter on thepeoplespodcast.wordpress.com. And then you can also check out our exclusive community, a place where you can also get exclusive merchandise, teas, hoodies, and so forth, posters and so forth, So you can just go to Patreon/the People's Podcast Network.com, That's where you'll get everything. There's different tiers there. That's where you can join the community of practical problem solvers. But apart from that, we'll be back after this quick short break. Thank you.